Okay, here we go. Uh, we're in week 2 now, and we're in the uh, course uh, Excavation 2, EX 101. And today, this this week is mostly about, all about, not all there is, but this week is about plan reading. And it's going to be more of an introductory approach later on in the course. We'll get into some more advanced items, site plans, and as such, and then we'll continue to go up the ladder from there. But today, I'm going to try to introduce us into, well, we'll call it subdivision plans because what you're looking at is a cross section in a subdivision because you can see a curb, you can see asphalt, you can see a median or island, you can see the name of the street. But at any rate, uh, we're going to talk quite a bit about uh, these cross sections. Now, the picture on the left and the picture on the right are the same. I'm using two books because I have them, and the uh, the uh, the PDF book on the right is missing some pages, so we're going to take up the slack with the brand new PDF I got from the publisher on the left. So I'm going to kind of follow the book, and let me show you what I mean. Over here, this fellow over here, this cross section over here is probably going to be stationary for a while. Now I've got this one kind of marked up a little bit because if I can't find it here, we'll go over here and we'll find it. But I'm going to be moving this book, the pages in this book around because it's got some things in here that I want to be sure and talk about, and many of them are going to pertain to what's in here, and we're going to find these. So uh, let's start off with the way I start off when I pick up a set of plans, and I'm going to talk about where my cursor is, and I'll try to speak up so that you can hear me. Now, this book, although it's a very good book and it's a very good beginner book, it's hard to read in some cases, some parts of it. The pictures or the photographs are a little bit hard to distinguish sometimes. But the thing about this book is it's very good and it covers uh, what we need to know and not much else. So when I first pick up a set of plans, and let me go back over here, see if I can cheat a little bit and move this, take up this space so we can see. Can I move this thing? No. So we can see, oh, there we go. This is a little bit, take all I can get. There it is, right there. So I want to be sure I get the whether we're going to have a back slope or an end slope in there, and we can see it clearly over here. Now, let me just look at this thing, and what I have to do personally is I have to validate me, calibrate me with the drawing I'm looking at. So I look for things like this is the right of way, 54 feet right here. That's the right of way. I can go down here and see I'm on street section A and it's saying I have a 54-foot right of way. And it's telling me that this typical, that's another name for a cross section, is starting at station 118 plus 38, I believe. I have to get my glasses to read that. 118 plus 38.40. That's the first station that this is applicable, and I'll get to what I mean by that in a minute. And this particular cross section is good all the way to station 123 plus 28.7. Now, we might as well get into this right now. When I'm reading station numbers, and you can see over here on the right, we're going to be talking about station numbers. But when I look at this is 11,838.40. That's the way you read that. And when we get over here, it'll explain that. But let me say it again. 11,838.40 to 12,328.7. Now, that's going to give us, actually, if you subtract or find the difference in those two station numbers, you'll see how long, horizontally long, that this is going to be applicable. And that means it's going to fit the existing grade within the limits set here. Now let me go ahead and explain that in just a minute. So we have 490.31 feet from this station, which is 118 plus 38.40, to the next station, 123 plus 28.71. And again, that's the same thing as saying 11,838, yes, 0.4 and 40 hundredths to 12,034. I'm sorry, 12,000. Sorry, just trying to focus in on it. 12,300. I can't read it. 12,328.71. Finally got that out. It's a little bit blurry on the bigger screen I'm looking at. I might take my glasses off. I think I can see it better. So the distance from here, this station to this station, if you calculate it and subtract it, you'll come up with 490 3/10 feet. Now, so I'm kind of getting a feel for it. I can see that we have a median right here, and I can see that we have this FC is the face of a curve. This is called a type 5 vertical curve. If you're laying this out, you're going to need to know what that type 5 vertical curve looks like. And this is a type 2 right here, curb and gutter. Type 2 curb and gutter. And you can see we have a profile of it. And those are run around 18 to 15 inches from here, the bottom to the top back of the curve. And we'll get to that dimension here in a minute. And I can see here that the curve is from where the asphalt is, and this is asphalt, is 3 foot. So I've got to allow 3 foot, or know that I need 3 foot in this location for a curve. So my asphalt is going to run across here 17 feet, and then I got to add another 3 feet. Now we'll get to this shoulder area here in a minute. But let's get all this cleared up here. This is the center line, and here again is the face of curve. And we'll start reading what they want us to know here in just a minute. I'm just pointing out some things. Type 2 curb and gutter, 13-foot shoulder. You see that? That's a break line right there saying this is not to scale. It's 13 feet out here though. And it's sloping at 2%. And you can see that it's actually sloping down a little bit from the curb. Now, if this is a subdivision, I would suggest that it's sloping down to the curb. So from here to here is a cut. Now, remembering a cut doesn't necessarily mean that you're cutting dirt. It just means you got to go lower. So if this is 13 feet, my stake would read 13 with a circle around it. That'd be my offset. And whatever 2% times 13 is, I believe it's going to be like 0.26. That would be my cut. It would be 13-foot offset, cut 0.26. That would be a stake probably sitting back here where my cursor is right now. Now, I'm going through all this stuff to let you know that there is a huge amount of information on one cross section. I don't know how well the book describes what a cross section is, but it's just a typical, and that's what these are called, typicals. It's a typical cross section of the would-be road that's going through the subdivision. This one has a median, and there it is right there. Now, 400 and let me see where I wrote that down. 490 and 3/10 feet down the road, you know, like you got to visualize this as coming at you and going away from you, is this will be good for that length. So let's start looking at what will also probably be in the specifications. When you have plans, you also have specifications. But let's see what they're giving us here. So we got 54. Where did we figure 54? How do we get that? And is this what this adds up to? What is 17 and 3? That's 20, and 7 more feet is 27. Look over here. 17 and 3 is 20, and 7 more is 27. 27 and 27 is 54. So that's all adding up to me now. FC, face of curve. FC, face of curve. That's the front of it, the face of it, I think. Yes. This is the lip right here where I, thank goodness, changed to an arrow. Right there is called the lip. The face is on the back, and when you are setting stakes for these things, you would be setting them to where the top back of the curve is, which is right up in here. And so we went through that over here. It was 13-foot offset. Where did I get that? No, this one we're looking at. No, it doesn't matter. They're the same. 13-foot offset, 2% fall, you know, which comes up, multiply that, that's 26. You hit that percent sign, it's going to say 0.26. So that would be cut 0.26 to the back top of the curve. This is like the if it didn't have this situation where, like, if if we're building an embankment, in other words, we're building this up, we're bringing in a lot of dirt here, and then we're going to cut it out so that our subgrade will fit here and here, and we'll have to cut it deep enough to allow for the curb, the asphalt base here, both of these, and that's probably going to end up right here at 3-inch asphalted concrete plus 8 inches asphalt base. So we got 3 inches of AC, and we got 3 inches, 8 inches of base. So from here to here, we're going to have 11 inches when we cut this out. And of course, we'll convert that to feet by dividing it by 12 when it comes time to check grade or cut grade. Now this base here, this asphalt base material is here. Well, I can't get my thing to quit. But then there's a base down in here. I don't think it's going to call it this. This is the asphalted base that they want under the curb, right here. And it's a little bit different. This is just dirt here, I believe. And because, before we started, this was just no telling where the existing grade was. But this is the way it's going to look like for 490 feet. And we're going to make sure. So now, again, as I was saying, we have built this up. So that means we're going to have, this doesn't pertain to us because we're up higher than the existing ground. And so we're going to have a 2-to-1 maximum. That's not any steeper than 2-to-1 inslope in this case. Now, if we were cutting through a hill, like if our existing grade was up here, follow my cursor, if it was up here, we would be cutting through and building this template, let's call it, and we would have a back slope to prepare instead of a inslope to prepare. Same thing's going on down here. They're just different stations and have a few different things. This is 32 foot. This is 54 foot right away. So let's take and let's see if make sure we've got everything we need uh, to get comfortable with this thing. Uh, Over here, I'm going to go back to my little cheat sheet for all of us here, and you can see that I've kind of covered most of what I talked about. That's the street name here, the station numbers. For some reason, I can read them better over here. Uh, Here's your 4-inch minimum asphalted base under the curb and gutter, right there. You come down here, uh, and I've got way too many pictures. Now, you come down here, since these are highlighted, I'm going to stay right here, and then we'll be leaving this picture here, the little cheat sheet, and working from the book over to here. So let's make sure we've covered everything. In this case, we have, as it says, where does it say? 32-foot right of way right there. We're at street section B. This is street section A. A has a 54-foot right of way. So there's going to be a meet and match somewhere where this changes into a boulevard type situation. But I'm not sure we'll get there in the book. But at any rate, this one's telling us the same thing. If we're cutting through an existing grade that's up here along the about where my cursor is, we're going to have a back slope. And if we're bringing in material and building up, say the existing grade is like right across in here somewhere, so we're got to build all this up, we will have an inslope going down here. Now, if this is a subdivision, keep in mind that there's going to be, like, probably right here, there'll be a sidewalk. And this will probably move back. This doesn't show a sidewalk. This right out in here, I would say would just be the front yard. And it would probably continue at that 2%, just so that if the house was sitting over here, that water will be, that whole lot will, that the house is on, will drain out in here, so it gets to the curb and it finds a catch basin along the line, the gutter of the curb, and that's where the storm water, rainwater will go. So let's see. Here's the same thing, 3-inch of asphalted concrete on an 8-inch asphalted base. We talked about that over here. Oops, I can't do that. This one's this book is protected. This one's not so much. I can make little marks on this one. A few like highlights on it. Let's see. Take a breath here, and I think it's probably time that we check in on, with the book, and I want to do that this is probably where the chapter works. And if you don't have your book, I should have said that at the beginning. Get your book, because you're gonna and grab a micro, what do you call it, magnifying glass the next time you're in a Walmart or something for this book, because when we get into the grade plan itself, which is a little bit different, we get into site plans and things. Things are going to get crowded, numbers are going to be blurred, and I can find them, and I've got a lot of them highlighted so that we'll not spend all of our time hunting. But when you take the test at the end of the chapter, you probably may need, if you have any kind of vision uh, problems, get a what do you call it? Not a microscope, a magnifying glass. So in the chapter 2, we're going to cover how to read survey drawings of a street and subdivision plans. Now, we're going to get into subdivision plans, but in all of these things, we're not going to take a deep dive. That'll be coming later. And we'll be including grading plans. Now, what in the world is a grading plan? Well, that's different than what you took in blueprint reading. Now, what you took in blueprint reading is useful, but it's mostly for, I haven't really looked at it that much, but what I saw, what I have seen of it, it's mostly what I call architectural. It doesn't get too much into contour lines, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But it does get into plats, plots, and lots and things like that, I think. But what you learned in there that'll be very useful uh, going forward is, what is an extension line? Well, that's an extension line, and those kinds of things you picked up in there. You know that this right here is a dimension, and you know that this is the extension line from this point up here where the dimension is. So the things you learned in there are quite useful. We're just going more to the uh, earth moving side, since that's what we'll be dealing with uh, probably throughout the course more than anything else, and certainly that's what you'll be dealing with when you uh, graduate from here. And some of you, I realize, are working in construction and in earth moving operations, which is good. Some of you may have seen these kinds of plans since you're in your job, and you may know more or as much as I know about them. But so we'll just learn together. But we'll cover grading plans, contour lines, underground pipelines, not much of that, profile sheets galore, uh, plan sheets galore. We'll be looking at a few of those during this week's uh, lesson. Cross sections, you just see those are cross sections. And there's a really detailed detour plan toward the end of the chapter. And I think I'm asking you to read this chapter even maybe before the video. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter too much when you read it. But be sure you're understanding it. The test is not very hard. I'll probably throw in some things for you to make sure you're really understanding this. But meantime, let's just keep moving. I love this statement right here. It's essential that the grade setter and the foreman understand the plans completely in order to do the work correctly. I don't know how it got out that there's hardly any stakes anymore. There's a huge reduction in the number of stakes needed uh, since GPS and automated grade control has evolved. But I'm gonna tell you something, there's still a bunch of stake marking, a bunch of stake reading that has to be done. So abbreviations, toward the back of the book, there's tons of abbreviations. If we come to them, we'll figure them out, or we'll flip to the back of the book if we can't seem to find it and see what it is. And sometimes the company may use different things, but you need to check with them and find out what those, if you don't know, find out what they are. Don't take anything for granted. I think we're going to look at the most common, it says. But let's continue to flop through this working workbook, textbook I have, because I want to hit on some things. Now look at this plan over here, and I said that if you go from this 11,838 or 118 plus 38 and 4 tenths to 123 plus 28 and 71 hundredths, you're going to go, I think I said, no, that's this one. You're going to go 490 feet. No, I'm sorry, it's this one. But anyway, that's the length this thing goes. So if I have a gap in here, and this is where, let's just see, they're going to show you an example. If there's a gap in the station, and I don't have a gap in here in either one of these, I think that's why they gave them to us. If there's a gap in the stationing on Tipple Street sections, it's because there's a transition area from one section detail to another. And there may be some different kinds of templates in there. Always check the station numbering closely to avoid a mistake. If the numbers indicate a missing section, you must look for that for the street section or under the street section. You must look for the street section or sections that complete the distance. And here's their example. If the stationing marked under the street section reads, like here where they're located, if the stationing reads 3,100, that's what that is, to 3,600, and then on the next one, it starts off with a gap. It starts at 40. It doesn't start at 37 or, where you would think it would. It starts at 40. So it reads from 4,000 to 6,800. You must locate the section that covers the 400-foot gap. That's what's between here and there, between stations 36 and 400. That's all there is to that. You got to find that gap, see where it is and what's going on there on the plans. And you'll have the station number. You look for this station number and you look for that station number, and whatever's between there you have to find. If there's nothing there, you need to be asking somebody, what are you going to do in here? That's what did I say, 400-foot gap that we don't know what kind of typical fits in there. Let's see, what did they say in here? Oh, there it is. That's the 490 feet that's missing. And it goes in detail. I'm just going to read it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read it to ad nauseum, or whatever that word is, probably, because I want to really be sure that you're on the page with me and that I'm giving you all I can and explaining what's not written down, if I can. Notice that the station numbers in street section A represent 490 and 3,100 feet of street. So we subtract that. What we did a while ago, that 11,838 and 40 hundredths from 12,328 and 71 hundredths. That's 11,838 and 40 hundredths. That's changing it from stations to just numbers like it is from this, and that's where you get the what I keep saying. Also notice that in the street section B over here, in street section B, the information provided covers a longer section on the left. On this side is longer. If you subtract this station from this station, you'll find that it's longer than subtracting this station from this station. So this is talking about, notice that the station numbers in the street section A represent 490 and 3,100 feet of street. Subtract that from that, and that's where you get. Also notice that in street section B, the information provided covers along a section on the left, and it shows you 3,100. If you look over there, you'll see that 3,100 to 92 subtracted from 9,242 and 3,800 equals 6,142 and 3,800 feet. That much further than the right side, which is 3,100 from 1858. That's 6,118 feet and 5,800 feet. LT is an abbreviation for left. RT is the abbreviation for right. That tells you that the change on the left side of the street goes 23.8 feet beyond the change to the right side. Now, you're going to have to do something about that. You're going to have to go see what's going on down there. Why is it like that? You know, the transition. I don't know. Maybe it goes from a boulevard to a two-way traffic. You know, maybe something like that. Who knows? But you got to find out. I'm going to let you, rather than bore you to tears with me reading what you're looking at completely, I'm going to let you look at these station numbers on your own. Text me, call me, whatever, write me a letter, use my email if you have questions on it. But I really want you to understand what these numbers are and really get a grasp of what a station number is. And it goes into really good detail explaining which numbers represent 100, which numbers represent 1,000, etc., etc. And that's good to know. And they're all starting at 0 plus 0, 0. Now, what's next? Are we still talking about that? Oh, yeah, this guy. You know, I've never figured out how. Street section A. What if I do this? No. This? That's no good. No, I'll do this. Let's see if it'll do. This right here. Oh, it's not. Street section A. I hate it like that. Anyway, that's good enough for now. Maybe if I save it, it'll quit doing that. Okay, street section A in figure 2-1. Let's find street section A in figure 2-1. That's right here. Indicates that it may be found on the plans at station 118, 38, 40. I'm going to talk like that, but what I'm saying is station 118 plus 38 and 40 hundredths to 123 plus 28 and 71 hundredths. And that's where you can find it, and that's where it's good for. And again, that's 490 feet, I think. And there's a 54 feet from right-of-way line to right-of-way line. That's talked about there, and it's talked about right here. Notice that each right-of-way line is indicated at the back of the curve. This is important for the grade setter. He needs to check the cross section to be sure that the back of the curb and the right-of-way are the same distance. He needs to check the cross section to make sure that the back of curb and the right-of-way are the same distance. Back of curb right here and the right-of-way to the center line are the same distance. So that it's this many feet here and it's this many feet here. This would be from the back of curb, you would have to go 327. From the back of curb here, 317, 27. So it's 54. So it's good there. Now let me lead up to this sentence. It angsts me that I can't change my pointer, but there's a lot of things I can't change. So the surveyor may only give the distance to the back of the curb with the cut or fill to the top of the curb. Now, we did that here, cut or fill to the top of the curb, right there. And if he does it over here, you're gonna be checking this right-of-way difference. See, you're given this distance. Make sure that you're leaving right-of-way, because you can't build anything outside of the right-of-way, like you don't want your curbing and things like that, because you got a setback for a house and all that. But what's he saying down here? The survey stake would be set 4 foot back of curve, so the front of the stake would read 4. That uh, if he's going to set it 4 foot back, that would be 4 with a circle around it. And then it'll say the right of way and back of curb with the grade for the curb, which would be a cut or fill, and the center line. And where the center line is, how far it is to the center line would be on that stake. And that'd be writing on both sides. The lot setback line with distance and grades for back of curb, center line, and lot grades. So we're going to touch on this lot stuff later on in the in the uh, in the course, uh, and it can get really confusing because you got writing on both sides of stakes when you start building this subdivision. But we will touch on that. Okay, note directly under the curb, right there is what it's talking about. Again, that wants a certain amount of certain kind of base, and it gives you the 95% specification for compaction. So they'll actually come out with a nuclear density meter, and that measures moisture content, and you got to be within 95% of what is specified, and that's pretty tight. That's really tight, but it's a road, and roads are they have strict tight compaction. What am I trying to say? Requirements. Let's leave it at that. And that's the note directory under there. 4 inches of aggregate base, and we talked about that, and that's all going with the 8 inches and etc., etc. Ideal subgrade situations occurs when the curb subgrade, street subgrade are the same, and they're talking about curb and street are the same. In other words, the asphalt matches the lip of the curb, so we don't have to make a slot here to get this curb down to match the asphalt. So that's great when it's matching it. You can see that this is the case here they're talking about. This is the case we got here. There's a line drawn the width of the street for subgrade with no notch. Line drawn width of the subgrade with no notch. The same measurements are shown for the other side of the road, and with both sides matching. Let's see. Here's our 13-foot dirt shoulder. I can't wait to talk about that. So there, 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 and there is this shoulder right here. Let's see what it says about it, if I didn't lose it. Oh, the measurements for the 13-foot dirt shoulder, the 3-foot curb right here, the 17 feet of pavement, and the 7 feet of island, the 17 feet of pavement, and the 7 feet of island to the center line. The same over here. Now, the same measurements are shown for the other side. Okay, now let's look at the finished slope grade starting at the far left. Bam, if we're going to start on section A, which I am there. Now let's look at the finished slope grade. I can't. I'm just really sad that I can't do the. But it's just not going to let me. Okay, that's okay. the finished slope grade starting at the far left, first you'll see a 2-to-1 max. Now we've kind of talked about this. A 2-to-1 max per plan on one line slanting up and on one line slanting down. Now we're talking about not the shoulder, are we? Yes. Okay, he's talking about the shoulder, 3-foot curve, 17 feet pavement. We went through all that. Okay, now let's look at the finished slope grade. And that's this, I think, is what we're about to talk about, because he's got 2-to-1 max per plan, and that's what it says here. 2-to-1 max per plan, 2-to-1 max per plan. One line slanting up and one line slanting down at the same angle. This indicates you must build a 2-in-1, or the way we've been saying it, 2-to-1 slope from the dirt shoulder here, the dirt shoulder, regardless of whether it's a cut or a fill, as I went into. And that depends on, are you bringing in dirt, raising up the elevation of the road or the subgrade? If you are, it's going to be an end slope. It's going to be a cut down. If you are cutting through a higher existing grade, it's going to be a finishing the dirt that's up here. You'll have to cut this out, and then you'll have to build this slope. Regardless whether it's a cut or fill, this is the same on the right side slope as well. The slope moves 2 feet horizontally for every 1 foot. That's just reminding us. Okay, so you see 2% on this shoulder, 2% above the shoulder. That tells you that the 13-foot shoulder slopes 2% from the slope hinge point to the top back of curve. So it's going from here, like we talked about, going down from this hinge point to the top back of curve. That's the hinge point. Both sides, both sections, same thing. So continuing toward the center line, there's a notation. Let's continue toward the center line, saying that a type 2 curve and gutter is required. The grade setter will then have to find a cross section of the type 2 curve and type 2 curve, and we talked about that at the very beginning. We're going to have to find a cross section of a type 5 vertical curve, and we're going to have to find a cross section of a type 2 curve and gutter, which is pretty standard, I think. So now that's what we just talked about, the slope. If it's 13 feet and if it's 2%, you can do this by multiplying 13 times 0.02, or you can multiply 2 times 13 and hit the percent sign, and it'll give you the same answer. You multiply it by 0.02, the way I usually do it, and the way I've had us do it back in grade 1. But you can just take the 2, multiply it times your horizontal, because you're taking the vertical and multiplying it times the horizontal, and or the fall, and it'll give you it'll give you 2600.26. So that'd be your cut. Now, I think, and maybe they'll say the same thing, wouldn't that be nice? The rate of fall is shown at 2%, and the distance is 17. Now we're talking about this right here. I've left the shoulder and I'm on this 2%. You can do the same thing, but let's read it. So the rate of fall is shown as 2% and the distance is 17 feet. 2%, 17 feet. So he says the same thing, 17 times 2, and then press percent, and the result will read. In this case, not the 13, but you multiply 2 times 17, you're going to get 3,400 fall. 2 times 17 is 34. Hit the percent sign, and you'll get 0.34 foot fall. is from the front of the island curb to the lip of the curb and gutter, from the front of the island curb to the lip of the curb and gutter. That's 17 feet, and the difference will be, where did it go? 0.34. 0.34. Yes, right here. So that's we have to know all that. We have to know the thickness of the asphalt. We have to know the thickness of the base, and any other sub pavement items that we have to consider. We have to know all of that to stake out our subgrade, because that's the first thing we'll stake out. The the surveyor is going to stake out finish grade. So we'll have to, when we say cut what the surveyor says cut, that will be taking us here. So we'll have to cut this much deeper, 11 inches or a foot or whatever it takes to get down to here. We have to cut that much deeper. This is a little bit repetitious, I think. Here's where we're doing the aggregate base for the total depth of 11 inches, which is right about here, 3 inches and 8 inches. That's where that 11 inches. If you cut 2% of the back of the curve, it'll add more than 4 inches of aggregate under the front lip of the curve. I'm not sure what that, let's see, what is that? That sounds important. So let's back up. This information is located on the drawing just above the street name. That's the aggregate asphalted concrete, and the base is just above the street right here. So just above the street name Camino South. So next is cutting the subgrade 2%, which is a 0.41 drop in 20.67 feet across from the back of both curbs, would make the subgrade and the curb subgrade the same. What in the world is he talking about here? So we got our 8 inch. And we know about this, where the information came to give us this 8 inches. But what is cutting the subgrade 2%, which is a 4100 drop in 20.67 feet? Where did the 20.67 feet come from? Can anybody guess? Let's read on, and then we'll cheat and see. Cutting the subgrade 2%, which is a 0.41 drop at 20 and 6700. It's a mystery right now. Across from the back of both curves. Or is it a mystery? This is the back of this curve, right? Where are we? And this is the back of this type 5 vertical curve. That's 17 feet. What in the world is 2 times, let's see, where is the 6, 7? Camino South cutting the subgrade 2%, which is a 0.41 drop in 20.67 feet across from the back of both curves, would make the subgrade and the curb subgrades the same. The curb grade is often steeper than the street grade. I know what that is. Oh, he's trying to raise this up a little bit, because see here, the curb grade, let's see, the 2% is going to change a little. We've got to have this cut to even the top of this. I think it's what he's talking about. I don't get this 0.41. Let's see, 2% times 17 is 0.34, I believe. So that's not what I'm looking for. That was up here. So let's see. The curb grade, in other words, that slant right there, the curb grade is often steeper than the street grade. If you cut 2% to back of curb, it'll add more than 4 inches of aggregate under the front lip of the curb. These are items the grade setter and foreman must need to know. I'm still a little bit confused, but let me see what 0.41, just a second. Or the book is confused, but I'd rather blame it on the book, but I don't think that's the problem. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. I want to look at something. Hold on. I'm calculating something. I want to go on. I think what's happening is this 0.41 is, if I can find this other one little piece of information, I think I can get it done, but I'm not sure. Uh, I can't bluff you. So I'm gonna leave that alone and go back on it. That's not on the test, but that doesn't matter. We still need to know exactly, because I'm not quite understanding that, just to be honest with you. I want to come back to it and try to throw it into the next video. Don't want to spend all this time on that. But what they're doing is they're adjusting so that the curb, the the this little area of the curve is the same elevation as the asphalt. Now they've already said it is, and I remember that, but I'm really interested in how they're calculating that. But I'm not going to spend any more time on it right now because that's important. Otherwise, you would have to cut slots sometimes for curb or build them up. So that's something I'll need to get back to. So let's move to the next item, though. We come to is the barrier curb. That's this thing right here, I think. Are they calling that a barrier or island? So the next item we come to is the barrier curb at the island. The note above indicates a type 5 curb, vertical curb. Grade setter must check the specs. We'll through that type 5 curb. The 2% indicated on the top of the island is the amount of finished landscaping. That could be dirt, grass right in there. So let's see, where'd it go? Again, the specification of notes and plans will specify what material is required for the island section and how much below top of curve the subgrade should be, how much below that top of that vertical curve. There are two important things the grade setter must pay attention to. The first, that the aggregate road base runs to the back, not the front of the island curve. That's those vertical curves. You got to go all the way to the back side where this base is. Road base runs back, not the front of the curve. And second, you know what? That's the thickness of that curve, I think, is what was confusing me up there. How do you have to have that? But anyway, I'm not going to worry about that right now. not the front of the island curb. And second, that the subgrade between the island curbs must be left 4 inches below the finished landscape grade. This is indicated by the note under the island on the street detail sheet. Subgrade prior to landscaping. In other words, this is the subgrade they're talking about right here. You got to leave this in there. This whole thing is dirt to begin with, so it's compacted dirt. And you got to leave 4 inches below the finish line so you can have that 4 inches there. That's what that's talking about. This is indicated by the note. Now, I want to look. Wanted to get to one more thing, and I'm going to leave you kind of hanging on that vertical curve. But I think what they're trying to do is make sure they get the asphalt to the back of that vertical curve. Vertical curve is generally just a flat piece of concrete standing upright, I think, with a little bit of radius on the top of it. So the 2% aggregate base grade in the street section, both A and B, doesn't match the bottom of the curb and gutters, so the curb must be trimmed and poured before the final trim on the aggregate can be completed. The curb pan usually slopes 7%. The pan is this little area right in here. That little slope right there is 7%. The street section doesn't show the slope for the bottom of the curb right there. Where to go? That information, as well as other curb measurements, is in the curb specs. The second street section B is essentially the same as the first, minus the island, in addition to the street cross sections, etc., etc. I really want to get just barely into this, so the next time we take it up, I got to go find this picture that we're going to be talking about. Here is the grading plan. Now, this is the book that's missing this figure and some pages around that. So there may have to be some back and forthness to this thing. But I'm just going to talk about this grade plan just a little bit, then we'll wind this session up. There's a lot on a template. And there's a couple of things. That one thing we'll be sure and get back. If not any other way, it'll be through an announcement or something like that. But I'll get it figured out. Okay. This is a grade plan. This is actually a subdivision. This is hard to read. It's easier to read in your book, as I recall, but not easy to read, period. So let's hold up on the grading plan. This is what it looks like. This is what the next video will be about. And so for this session, I'm going to call it quits. Be sure take a look at this. Go ahead and read the chapter if you have time. There's a test at the end there. I may throw in an assignment, but not sure about it. There's just so much to this plan reading, and we have quite a bit to go. To get this covered in a week is may not be possible. We may have to push things down because we want to get this first part done. So I'm gonna sign off for right now. There'll be plenty to do in this week one. There's a tailgate that I really want you to pay attention to and really put your effort into it. It's talking about this criterion, the kind of criteria I want you to have in your post. So take your time on that. We're not going to push you, and we'll see you next video.